Well, welcome back to another Daily Dose for the Chris McPherson Show. And we are talking World Test Championship and heading into day 3. It looked like it was all things Australia. There'd been plenty of wickets falling, but they had the upper hand comfortably and didn't day 3 do a number on us. It certainly turned things on its head. But even early days, if we go back to the start of day 3, things were looking pretty good for Australia. We came in 8 wickets down. Australia were pretty comfortable. Mitchell Starc at the crease and doing wonderfully for us. 8 for 144 we started, and Mitchell Starc then decided to turn it on. Managed to get himself to the top of our batting card with 58 not out. Some rusty but nonetheless support from Nathan Lyon and Josh Hazlewood, who fell to Rabada and Aiden Markram respectively, as things look like they might have been starting to flatten out, which possibly could have been one of the warning signs for the Aussie bowling attack as we headed into day 3. But we set South Africa a fairly aggressive target, considering the most any team had gotten in either innings was just over 200. They needed 282 once we were all out, Australia, in their second innings for 207. And most Australians were feeling pretty confident at this point, but there was always that glint that there was a couple of South Africans who did have the ability to go and put some scores on, but the likelihood of them managing to do that in these circumstances, considering the amount of wickets that was fallen, meant that most of us were pretty confident. I certainly thought that it was a game that was sitting in Australia's taking, and it was, highly unlikely. But enter Aiden Markram. He stepped up, the opening batsman, and probably naturally one of their most gifted players. We did get a wicket reasonably early in the third over. Ryan Rickleton fell for 6 from 8 balls, caught behind by Carey off Mitchell Starc's bowling. A little bit later on in the session, we got another wicket with Vian Mulder falling, their number 3, who's in his first test match as a number 3 bat. And you thought things were looking a little bit nervy at that point. 2 for 70 off almost 18 overs. They were going along quite well, the South Africans, but it was still in the balance. But then get together Aiden Markram and Temba Bavuma, their captain, and they turned the screws, playing smart cricket, taking runs on offer as the pitch evened out and looked a little more consistent, a little easier for batting. Aiden Markram, in the shadows of stumps, managed to bring up his century. He got 102 at the end of the day, brought up his century of 156 balls with 11 fours, while Bavuma also managed to tally up a half century during the play as well, which meant that things have very much been ripped from Australia's grasp. South Africa now 2 for 213, just requiring 69 runs to seal this on day 4. And we said earlier that weather being clear, that this should wrap up on day 4, and it's turned out that looks like it'll be the way. It will need absolutely every prayer to every deity and God that any Australian can find, as well as plenty more that Australia will need for them to be able to turn this around. It just doesn't seem that is going to be a chance. You know, the South Africans have still got Stubbs and Bettingham within their batting lineup, both able enough, and with the form Markram and Bavuma are in, things are tilted very much in South Africa's favour, and we could see, for the first time in South African history, they're going to take a world title home. We know they've choked a number of times in the shorter formats, but it will all not matter if they can break that duck. And then the question may be, what sort of confidence will South Africa take from this? Will they build on to future tournaments where all of a sudden they now have the belief in winning major titles? It's not all done yet, but it seems a fait accompli. It's within theirs for the taking. It's there in their grasp. They've got one hand on the World Test Championship trophy, and Australia look like they won't defend their title, which is a shock for many. But I think we need to doff our cap to the South Africans. A wonderful display from them. Some great batting from Markram and Bavuma most notably. And again, they've kept themselves in it with consistent and solid bowling, and they do have a great bowling attack. And now their batting, which has been perceived to be their Achilles heel, looks like it could actually stand up and be the difference. Markram will likely be right in the mix for man of the match, because he'll be the only man likely to get a century in this match, and that's going to be a talking point in itself. So Australia's batting, some very big question marks over it. We know they picked a side with an expectation to shape it just on winning this, but as we now head after this match to the West Indies, there's going to be some questions asked. There's going to be some people under the microscope, that is for sure. Our bowlers have done a wonderful job. This deck has started to flatten out on day 3. It is quite clear that it's got a little easier for batting. We saw Starc with his 50, and now a 50 for Bavuma and a century for Aiden Markram. So it'll be very much looking back into the looking glass for the Australians as they head forward with a very much a view to the Ashes later this year and what goes on from there. So a lot of questions to be asked, but it's not completely over. It's just almost over. As I said, almost a fait accompli. You feel the South Africans should wrap this up early on day 4, maybe in the first session, or if not, just inside the second. We'll wait and see how that shapes. But for the time being, we will wrap it up here. We look forward to seeing day 4 close out. If it is as obvious as it is, and it's just South African procession from here, we won't come back for a day 4 daily dose. But if there's something more to tell, we will unpack that. But in the meantime, we look forward to bringing you more daily doses of the Chris McPherson Show in coming weeks, as well as our weekly shows on a Thursday. You can find those on our YouTube or also on Spotify. A big thank you all for tuning in. We like to bring these to you, bring you the black and white of your sports. No grey opinions. It looks like it's going to be a South African advance to their first world title here, the World Test Championship, unless the Aussies can find an absolute minor miracle. But until next time, I'm Chris McPherson on The Chris McPherson Show. We look forward to talking to you again soon.